does have one of my favorite new moves, the high horsepower. Also on Snorlax.
Yep, also on Snorlax. And we see these players getting set up.
Yeah, there's Enosh on the left and Matt on the right. Both players. Yeah, so Enosh does have to say something to the partner. Enosh is a very vocal player.
Yes, he is.
You might notice if you're watching the player cam.
Yep, he will be communicating with his opponent, and he'll almost always be smiling as well. Whether it's good luck, bad luck, he'll always be talking to his opponent, smiling, laughing, making sure he's having a good time.
That's what it's all about. It's having a good time, staying positive, and winning some Pokemon games.
Yep, and I don't believe we've mentioned the rest of Enosh's team, but he has an Arachnid, which is a Pokemon I'm really interested in because it's actually quite bulky. Its HP is not the highest, its defense is just average, its special defense is massive, but its ability is ridiculous.
The water bubble?
Yeah, it boosts its water moves tremendously.
It's basically doubling their power.
Right, and then against fire moves like Torkoal, he's really able to do work against Torkoal. He can't be burned, so you can't even Will-O-Wisp him to lower his attack. He's just so cool.
Yeah, I mean, Arachnid's sort of rise is part of why we've been seeing a lot of Gastrodon as well, with that Storm Drain ability. A lot of them just aren't enough, though. It's not just enough to have that Gastrodon. We'll need to have another answer as well.
Yeah, because Gastrodon can't really do any damage to the Arachnid, even though Arachnid can't really do damage to the Gastrodon. But if the Gastrodon is toxic, it can kind of wear it out. But if you don't have toxic, you definitely need a partner.
Yeah, well, here you see both of the players on your screen and the teams below. Enosh with that Tapu Fini, as we mentioned before, the Arachnid, the Kartana, the Crocodile, Marowak, and the Porygon 2 up against Matt, who is running the Marowak, Tapu Koko, Celesteela, Porygon 2, Gastrodon, and Crocodile. So really interesting here. Also going with the Kartana Ultra Beast on Enosh's side as well. We haven't seen too much Kartana. I think the first Kartana we saw on stream was Aaron's last round.
Yeah, the Kartana will be really helpful because it's good against Gastrodon, good against Crocodile. If the Celesteela doesn't have Flamethrower, then it can't really do anything to the Kartana. And Enosh has 2 water types, but he's got that Marowak to protect him really well. So that Tapu Koko is going to be really risky to bring because you really want to bring it against those 2 water types, but there's a Marowak, there's a Crocodile. Yeah. It's going to be tough to fit it in.
Yeah, going to be really difficult. I mean, what we've been seeing in some of these team previews is just how difficult it is to make a decision. Like, there are so many different ways that these teams can work out that, until you play the first game, it's going to be really hard to actually figure out what should happen next.
Yeah, and we saw Enosh showing his opponent
very vocal player.
Some notes he's already taken.
So we are going to head into Game 1 of this best-of-3 set. Again, both of these players are undefeated right now. So whoever loses this matchup will take their first loss for the day. So it will be Kartana and Marowak for Enosh up against Porygon 2 and Gastrodon. And Enosh has to feel good about that, getting that Kartana in on Gastrodon and Porygon 2 immediately.
Oh yeah, really good, because Kartana threatens a Gastrodon. Marowak can do so much damage to Porygon, and Porygon, if it has Shadow Ball, it can do a lot back to Marowak.
Also got the special attack boost, which is something we haven't been seeing that much.
No, actually, when I was playing in London, I almost never got that special attack boost, and we've seen more of the same on stream. It's not been a common boost, but when it does get that special attack boost, it's so threatening because it's so bulky, and now it just deals so much damage as well.
It's just free damage.
Right. And we'll see if Enosh predicts this, because you never expect Gastrodon to stay in against a Kartana.
Grass type, yeah.
So maybe Enosh goes for a double up into the Porygon here.
All right, well, it looks like Enosh did just go for the Leaf Blade onto Gastrodon, which switched out for Celesteela. Not very effective Perish Song from Enosh. Usually you don't lead with the Perish Song. You save that for sort of a checkmate moment. Pory 2, though, will go for just the Ice Beam onto Kartana. Did get the special attack boost, but not a lot of damage.
Yeah, so that shows that Kartana is probably Assault Vest. Yeah, because there's no way it would be able to take that little damage from a Porygon 2 boosted Ice Beam.
And that Perish Song catching the Celesteela on the switch-in is really huge, actually.
Yeah, that's huge, because now Celesteela can't sub up, it can't Leech Seed and just stall out. I mean, because it'll have to switch out after a couple more turns. It's already kind of threatened by the Marowak, so it'll have to switch out anyway, but it really forces Matt into a position he doesn't want to bring in. He's going to have to bring in Gastrodon eventually. If Enosh can predict that on the switch with the Kartana, that could be huge.
It's so interesting to me to see Perish Song. We saw some of that in London as well. Just having Perish Song as an option to sort of set up these moments where you put everyone on a timer, you're probably going to switch your Pokemon out.
Yeah, it's really good against these stally type of Pokemon.
All right, well, Celesteela is switching
And
out
here
for
it is.
Gastrodon.
Did Enosh predict this?
Can Enosh pick up a KO here? The Leaf Blade will connect with the Porygon 2 instead. So Enosh is going for the free damage. Shadow Bone into Porygon 2. Of course, Porygon 2 is still a normal type Pokemon, not going to take damage from the Ghost Shadow Bone. And Twisted Dimensions Trick Room is up. Pori 2's Perish count falls to 2, as well as Kartana and Marowak.
Yeah, this is really good because now Enosh is the one who has to switch these Pokemon out. Not this turn, but at least next turn. And it really gives Matt, the pressure advantage because he's the one, he can predict switch-ins. He can look at what Enosh has on the rest of his team and make his attacks based on, the expectation that Enosh switches out because he's going to have to or he loses these Pokemon.
Yeah, really interesting move that Enosh went for the Shadow Bone onto Porygon 2, maybe hoping to catch Matt's own Marowak.
Yeah, clearly expecting a switch in there.
Yeah, just hoping to catch something with the maybe Kartana Sacred Swording into that slot to get the Ghost type. But heads up play from Matt, leaving Porygon 2 in, getting that Trick Room up, forcing Enosh now to switch out the Kartana. Tapu Fini now out on the field, so setting the Misty Terrain to protect Enosh and Matt's Pokemon from status. Might be pretty big against that Gastrodon, which does like to carry Toxic. Marowak will protect itself this time around. Gastrodon goes for the Scald, actually, onto the Tapu Fini on the switch, which won't do any damage whatsoever. Porygon 2 also with the Ice Beam onto the Tapu Fini as well, also going to deal negligible damage.
Yeah, so Matt doubling up into that slot because
leftovers.
He knew that Kartana was Assault Vest, so he knew it couldn't protect. And he had a feeling Marowak wouldn't stay in an attack against a Gastrodon, so he doubled up into that slot. It was a good read, but Enosh just had that Tapu Fini in the back, able to take those two attacks really easily.
And now Porygon 2 and Marowak both at 1 for their Perish count, so they will either have to switch out or faint after this turn ends. Which leads to some interesting mind games here. I mean, what could Matt switch to? If he brings in the Celesteela again, maybe Marowak just goes for a Flare Blitz.
Yeah, but I don't think Enosh wants to risk that. Knowing that the Celesteela is in the back, I think Enosh would rather just save the Marowak for later because he's in a really good spot right now. And especially once we see that Tapu Koko, he's going to want to save this Marowak.
Yeah, Enosh really needs to keep that Marowak around with Tapu Koko out on the field. Marowak will retreat, so Enosh will be able to save that for later. Kartana out for him, which could be interesting here in the Trick Room. Gastrodon Scald once more.
So now there is a chance to burn because that Electric Terrain
up.
Yeah,
Electric Terrain now up. Will connect with Kartana. Critical hit and the burn. So that, Tapu Fini just lost its Misty Terrain and Kartana already going to go ahead and get burnt because of it. But Substitute Tapu Fini is an interesting play there as well, especially with that leftovers.
Yeah, so it will be able to heal up. Gastrodon probably is not going to be able to break this Substitute, however, the Tapu Koko will. But once Marowak comes in, Enosh could still be in a great spot because Trick Room is up, and Marowak will go before the Tapu Koko and threatens a knockout there. Of course, you always have to watch out for the Gastrodon, but Gastrodon not known for being, really offensive, so Marowak, I'm sure, will be able to take at least one attack.
Yeah, and of course, you do have to worry about potential discharges coming out from that Tapu Koko as well.
Yep, also true. And, Tapu Fini does have an option, though. It can just start setting up Calm Minds. If you leave it alone long enough, it'll eventually just get to the point where you can't take it out, even with Tapu Koko.
Once it's +6/+6.
Yeah.
Well, Gastrodon is going to go for the Ice Beam onto Kartana. Doesn't want to let it get any damage off. Kartana is still very threatening, even with the burn. Tapu Fini is going for Calm Minds. So Enosh is going to go ahead and try and get that set up, raising its special attack and its special defense. Of course, without Marowak out on the field, that Tapu Fini is totally open to this discharge.
Yeah, there's that discharge. That's really good knowledge for Enosh to have.
Yeah, now even if Marowak comes in, Tapu Fini will still be weak to the discharge because, of course, it will hit all Pokemon on the field, not just the single target if it was running, for example, Thunderbolt instead.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be really interesting to see because I expect Enosh to bring in the Marowak here to threaten that Tapu Koko, but that is so predictable. I wonder if Enosh, maybe he doubles up into that Gastrodon and tries to get it off the field because Tapu Fini's already starting to get a little set up. You have to expect that Tapu Koko to protect or switch. Maybe try and take out that Gastrodon so your Tapu Fini can win the game for you.
Yeah, I mean, in the back, we know that Matt has the Celesteela and the Porygon 2. So Celesteela should be able to deal some good damage to that Tapu Fini with its Heavy Slam. So you have to wonder, I mean, the Tapu Koko and the Celesteela are the two big threats for Enosh, and Crocodile comes out to deal with at least one of them.
Yeah, Crocodile also definitely threatens that Tapu Koko. And it's got a, it can go for a dark move onto Gastrodon to get, you know, maybe more damage than Marowak could have, depending on how this Crocodile's trained, what its item is. If it's carrying a Z move, which we've seen a lot of ground types like Garchomp and Crocodile as well sometimes have Z moves because they don't want to Earthquake into their ally, so sometimes they go for that Z ground move just to get massive single target damage.
But how sad would it be if he Z moved into the Celesteela?
Yep. But that's why if you go for it here, maybe Gastrodon stays in. If not, you could get another Calm Mind for free.
Well, Porygon 2 is going to switch in for Matt, so definitely going to keep it safe. Gastrodon does show Toxic.
That's huge.
That's so big, getting that Toxic onto Tapu Fini.
This electric terrain has been huge so far.
Yeah, just switching over from the protective, you know, zone of the safe space of that misty terrain. Not able to deal, not able to protect it from the Toxic. But here comes the ground Z move here. A Crocodile powering up and getting ready to do massive damage to Matt's Pokemon. The Tectonic Rage. Look at Crocodile. Look how angry he looks. He is ready to take it out onto Gastrodon. The poor Slug going all the way to the center of the earth. The Slug needs to stay hydrated, and all of that fire, all of that ground type damage will pick up the KO onto Gastrodon.
Yeah, so great read there by Enosh, going after that Gastrodon slot with a double target. However, he does let his Tapu Fini get toxic, which, if this game goes out long enough, that could be huge.
On the plus side, the Twisted Dimensions have returned to normal, but this does also give Matt the opportunity to bring in his Tapu Koko and still be faster than the Tapu Fini, possibly even going for Fairy-type attacks onto the Crocodile, which is still that Dark type.
Right. If you go for a Dazzling Gleam and then maybe an Ice Beam from the Porygon into the Crocodile, you could go for a knockout. But you, of course, do have to worry that Crocodile goes for a simple Earthquake. I don't know if this Tapu Fini will have Protect, so that'll be really interesting. Enosh may have to attack himself if he wants to go for that Earthquake.
All right, well, it is going to be Tapu Koko, so Matt will bring out the Tapu Koko. So Tapu Koko, Porygon 2, and Celesteela, the final Pokemon from Matt, alongside the Tapu Fini, the Crocodile, and the Marowak for Enosh. So still has that Marowak in the back.
Marowak is going to be huge because it's so good against the Celesteela and so good against the Tapu Koko. So maybe Enosh just doubles up into Porygon.
Yeah, I mean, Matt can't go for a Trick Room here. Not with Alolan Marowak still out for Enosh, but Crunch from Crocodile.
And it looks like that's what he's doing. Great play.
Yeah, absolutely going to target down the Porygon 2. Hits it with the Crunch, dealing a little bit of damage, and a Moonblast from the Tapu Fini onto Porygon 2. That Pokemon is so bulky. Does get the special attack drop, though, which might be very important on the damage roll for this Ice Beam. Dealing just a little bit of damage there, even though it's a super effective attack, no longer has that download boost.
Yep, but it'll be interesting to see if it's still in Dazzling Gleam range from the Tapu Koko.
Yeah.
But there is one example of Crocodile really missing Knockoff, which it had access to in previous generations, because it would have been able to knock off the Eviolite, and then Tapu Fini would have been able to pick up the KO.
Yeah, Crocodile, you know, some Pokemon gained new forms and new powers when they switched over to Alola, like a Marowak in the back, but Crocodile, he lost a couple of things.
Yeah, but, I mean, getting rid of this Porygon 2 for your Marowak, it's huge. So it's at such low HP, only one more attack is necessary to knock it out. And I think Enosh will be able to get that this turn. However, there is a chance, he withdraws it for the Celesteela, because that will be able to tank whatever Enosh throws at it.
Celesteela tanks everything in the game. Crocodile, though, does just go for a Protect here. Doesn't want to risk a Dazzling Gleam picking up the KO here. So Dazzling Gleam into the Protect will connect with the Tapu Fini, which of course does have that Calm Mind boost. Takes no damage. Muddy Water coming out from Tapu Fini will connect with the Tapu Koko and the Celesteela. That does some pretty good damage and gets the accuracy drop onto Celesteela and Tapu Koko. Double accuracy drop on that Muddy Water.
That could be big. Especially because this Tapu Koko is faster, so it could miss out on a knockout here simply because of a miss.
Yeah, it could miss out on a Discharge, Thunderbolt, Dazzling Gleam. Those are things you don't want to have to plan for.
No.
Like this is why some people don't use Fire Blast.
Yeah, it's really common for players to opt for the higher accuracy moves. I mean, we saw in the previous round Aaron missing a Meteor Mash. Back when Metagross could go for an Iron Head instead, a lot of players went for that simply because they didn't like that accuracy. So this Muddy Water could be huge.
Yeah, Tapu Fini showing off this time around, even with the Toxic. Alola and Marowak, the switch in for Enosh. So Marowak now out on the field with that Lightning Rod ability. Goes for the Thunderbolt. Tapu Koko went for the Thunderbolt. Marowak will take that attack instead. Really great switch in there from Enosh. Obviously, didn't want to risk the discharge there. Celesteela will avoid the Muddy Water, but it connects crucially with that Tapu Koko. That should be enough to pick up the KO. It does. Enosh pulling off a KO there with that Calm Mind boosted Tapu Fini.
That's huge because this Marowak has Perish Song. So,
oh yeah, and Enosh has 3 Pokemon.
Enosh has 3 left, Matt down to 2. So a Perish Song would simply seal up the game for Enosh.
If he can survive. And,
if he can survive.
And Matt can't pick up 3 KOs.
Right. Enosh should be able to do that, though.
Look at all that poison damage, though, coming out from Tapu Fini. It only has 1 turn left.
Yeah, unfortunately. Of course, Enosh could always choose to switch it out, but I don't think he wants to do that because this, thanks to the Toxic and the lack of Protect on this Tapu Fini, I think he wants the Crocodile to be the one in the back to simply just protect, pick up a knockout on Porygon. I mean, Celesteela, it's not going to be able to take down the Crocodile in time. Not to mention they have to take down Marowak as well, so the Perish Song should be able to seal this for Enosh.
If Marowak doesn't decide to just win the game with Flare Blitz instead.
Right.
Celesteela going to go ahead and protect itself behind that substitute. Unfortunately, Protect does not work on Perish Song. Moonblast will connect with Porygon 2, so that Celesteela still being fast enough to pick up the KO there. Porygon 2 goes down. Enosh's Tapu Fini will be lost here, but Shadow Bone into the Protect instead of the Perish Song there. Just going to go ahead and sacrifice this Tapu Fini now, though, so Perish Song no longer an option for Enosh.
Yep, at this point it doesn't matter what Enosh does because he will be able to win either way. Celesteela won't be able to stall out both a Marowak and a Crocodile, nor would it have been able to if the Perish Song was up. That Crocodile would have not been able to get knocked out.
Yeah, the double crunch coming out from Crocodile plus a Flare Blitz.
Yep.
Even if Celesteela wants to keep substituting, eventually it's going to go down.
Yeah.
Which, isn't that always just nice to see something eventually go down?
Yes, especially a Pokemon like Celesteela. Not a Pokemon many players get excited about playing against because they know they're in for a long, drawn-out battle.
Yeah. And fortunately for Enosh, he is in a position to win this long, drawn-out battle with Celesteela. The crunch onto the substitute will break the sub. Really important there for Enosh to be able to break the sub with 1 crunch. Heavy slam coming out from Celesteela. And if Enosh went for the Flare Blitz here, that should be about game. Yep, Marowak does go for the Flare Blitz, will connect to the Celesteela, dealing massive damage back to that flying bamboo satellite. And that will be game 1 for Enosh Chachar.
Yeah, really well played by Enosh.
Game.
I really like Enosh's team. It's got the combination of everything. Bulk, he's got the Intimidate, he's got some speed control on his team, he's got the offense there in the Kartana, although we also saw it was Assault Vest, so he's got a mixture of both bulk, offense. Of course, the Arachnid, when Trick Room's up, it's super offensive, so I'm really liking Enosh's team. He's got a lot of ways to switch in and out, as we saw.
Yeah.
A lot of ways to take resisted hits with bulky Pokemon, which is what you want to be doing. So I'm really liking Enosh's team, and we'll see if Matt is able to find a way around this.
Yeah, I feel like Matt underestimated the Tapu Fini in that first game.
Yeah.
Once he got the Toxic on, like I did, I thought that was it for Tapu Fini. It wouldn't be able to do much of anything. But showing that Muddy Water, dealing good damage to Tapu Koko, a 2-hit KO,
yeah, and then,
plus getting those accuracy drops.
Yep, and then the one turn it finally decided to go for an electric type move onto that slot. The Marowak came in. Yep.
Yeah. So really interesting plays there from Enosh and Matt. Matt will probably need to shake something up here. Obviously, going into Game 2, if you won the last game, you probably feel pretty comfortable. I feel like Enosh probably doesn't think that he needs to play that any better.
Yeah,
maybe just taking care of terrain a little bit more to keep that Tapu Fini from getting toxic. But
yeah, the terrains were really the only thing that went wrong for Enosh, but since Matt has a pretty standard team, Enosh is probably very familiar against playing against this type of team.
And the different variations.
And the different variations and how he played Game 1 has to give him confidence. I think Enosh just goes for a very similar thing to what he did Game 1 because so far he doesn't really have any reason not to.
But the spider doesn't come out if he keeps the same one. Araquanid is so cool.
It is.
It's probably my favorite design of all the new Pokemon.
It is really cool, but it's so tough to bring against a Gastrodon, especially since we know that Gastrodon is toxic. If the Misty Terrain isn't up, the Gastrodon will just wall and stall out the Arachnid.
All right, well, both of these players, of course, if Enosh wins this next game, he will advance and become 6-0 and very likely lock himself into a position in the top cut. Matt, if he loses this next game, will not, but if he wins, we go to a game 3. And even if Matt does lose this game, he will be, I believe, 5-1 and still very much in the running to make it to top cut. So not a whole lot of pressure on both of these players, but you really want to guarantee and get that 6-0 position rather than having to win every game.
Yeah, because once you lose, you don't want that doubt to creep in your mind, and that's certainly a possibility of happening. But here we get into battle.
Ooh. Enosh going with the Kartana and Marowak up against the Porygon 2 and Marowak from Matt. So a little bit of a change up there, bringing out the Marowak on that side.
Yeah, so it'll be really interesting to see which of these Marowaks is faster, because a simple Shadow Bone should knock out the opposing Marowak. And I'm sure both players know just how fast they are. They're both using Trick Room teams, so if one of these Marowaks is actually trained to be slightly fast, I think that player feels completely confident in just going for a Shadow Bone.
Yeah.
However, if they are trained specifically for Trick Room, I think they fully expect the opponent's Marowak to be faster and decide to play safe.
Yeah, and this is one of those positions where you really want to be up 1-0 because, you don't...
Yes, it allows you to take a
those
risk.
risks. Kartana, though, not going for any risk, just going for the Sacred Sword onto Porygon 2, but Shadow Bone from Enosh. Enosh's Marowak is faster, will pick up a KO. That is a one-hit KO, going for the risk of a potential speed tie while Porygon 2 sets up the Trick Room.
For Enosh's own Marowak.
Yeah, I mean, Matt has some other good Pokemon there, but only Gastrodon probably...
Which doesn't want to come in against this Kartana.
Well, that is a terrible loss on that first turn there for Matt to lose his Marowak. You have to wonder if you're going to go for the Trick Room play, do you maybe play it a little bit safer with the Protect or just trying...
Yeah, and if you know your Marowak is, trained to take advantage of Trick Room, even though your opponent has a Trick Room looking team as well, I mean, you probably want to play a little bit safer.
Down one game, that's such a risky play.
Yeah.
All right, well, it is going to be Gastrodon out on the field, and Kartana, even though it does have the Assault Vest, we know that it, does have paper-thin special defenses, so it's possible that this Porygon 2 and Gastrodon might be able to do some work here,
Yeah, but
Ice Beam
Marowak threatens a KO. Yeah, the Ice Beam Freeze
Scald
is
Burn.
probably it.
All right, well, the Scald onto Kartana, not a lot of damage thanks to that Assault Vest. No burn, so Porygon 2 will be able to get this Ice Beam off and possibly get a Freeze. Deals a lot more damage, but will survive. Marowak with the Flare Blitz will go right into the Porygon 2. Going to just keep up the offensive pressure, not quite picking up the KO there, while Kartana with the Leaf Blade onto Gastrodon. Gastrodon does not like to take any kind of grass attack, and a Kartana Leaf Blade is one of the worst.
Yeah, so Enosh in complete control here. Matt already down to 2 Pokemon, and his Porygon doesn't have any HP left. Trick Room is up for Enosh's own Marowak.
And Celesteela in the back.
In.
Yeah, that's not the Pokemon you want to have in the back if you are staring down a Trick Room-enabled Marowak.
Yeah, and Porygon 2 doesn't usually have Protect, so there's not even a way to really try and outplay this. Marowak can simply just pick up the KO. Really on either one, whichever one it wants to target.
Well, Porygon 2...
it has Recover at least.
Yeah, has no Protect. We'll go for the Recover. Maybe going to make the Marowak knock itself out with Flare Blitz. Marowak does go for the Flare Blitz. Will target down the Celesteela this time. Deals so much damage. A one-hit KO. Something you don't see very often onto the Celesteela. Deals so much damage back to itself, but Sacred Sword from Kartana won't be enough to pick up the KO, but it is... Oh, it is enough to pick up the KO.
Yeah, thanks to that Beast Boost.
Oh, thanks to the Beast Boost that last turn. Enosh in a very clean, clinical, and quick 4-0, never having to switch his Pokemon.
No, it was downhill since turn 1. There was really no way for Matt to come back from that after losing his Marowak for free, taking so much damage to his Porygon, and not doing anything.
Nicole as well is running the Raichu. Arcanine, Tapu Koko, Garchomp, Melodic, and Kartana. So interesting though, both are running the Alolan Raichu. Only Nicole is running that alongside Tapu Koko.
Yeah, and what's interesting to see here is I think this is the first match in a while where we don't have Trick Room options on both teams. Nicole's team, definitely more of a strong Pokemon, a fast Pokemon setup with that Tapu Koko, that Raichu, that Kartana, that Garchomp, that Arcanine, and even Milotic can be sort of on the fast time side.
Especially if it catches Salamence Intimidate.
Oh, definitely. So I'm curious to see how Ansel's going to respond to this. It looks like it might be an very likely chance for him to try and set up that Trick Room, but if Nicole can stop that, you know, as we've seen earlier today, just stopping that Trick Room can really help you win game one if your opponent's not prepared to keep battling beyond that.
Yeah, and you have to expect that Nicole has some plan to stop that Trick Room from coming up, or else she would not be here at 5-1. So
definitely
going to be an exciting matchup here. Both players have selected their teams and are ready to begin. Again, Nicole Stockel versus Ansel Bloom, both at 5-1. Winning this keeps their hopes alive. As well as losing this, they're not quite out of it yet, but you really want to take this win home. Milotic and Kartana for Nicole alongside Ansel's Tapu Lele and Raichu. So the Psychic field is down, but unfortunately Alolan Raichu can't surf on Psychic power.
It can't surf on Psychic power, but it is a part Psychic type Pokemon now due to its Alolan form. So if it's carrying something like Psychic, we might even see a I can't even say that, Psychic Z on it.
The Shattered Psyche.
Yes, we might even see the Shattered Psyche on it, which will do massive damage with the power-up from that Psychic terrain. But Milotic, certainly a Pokemon known for its bulk. Kartana, not so much, but we've seen so many with Assault Vest today, I can't help but wonder if we're going to see yet another one carrying that item.
Yeah, Ansel with the Tapu Lele Alolan Raichu lead will decide to switch out the Tapu Lele instead for the Celesteela. So getting that Pokemon out on the field to go ahead and start walling down this Milotic and the Kartana especially. Milotic will also go for a Protect, so Nicole just going to double Protect, scouting out to see what Ansel is going to go ahead and do here. Thunderbolt comes out from Raichu into the Protect, maybe trying to catch one of the Z moves if Ansel tried to go for a little cheeky early game knockout with the Shattered Psyche.
Yeah, I think that was a really strong play from Nicole. If you don't know what your opponent's going to do, especially in game one, there's certainly no harm in double protecting.
Well, except for giving Celesteela a free switch in.
Yeah, Celesteela gets the free switch in, but I don't think it would have taken much damage from a Scald or any of the moves that Kartana carries, such as Leaf Blade or that Steel type move that it knows.
Yeah, well, it looks like Milotic is going to switch out for Garchomp. So Garchomp out on the field. Raichu going for the Encore onto the Milotic. So Nicole really dodging that one out. Sacred Sword will connect with Celesteela, dealing some pretty average damage. But Flamethrower, we see that a lot on Celesteela that want to beat other Celesteela, but it also gives it the opportunity to beat Kartana.
Yeah, so a great play by Ansel there. Certainly great information for Nicole moving forward.
And the special defense boost.
The special defense boost on Celesteela is not really that great, but Garchomp is a physical attacker, so it's not the worst situation for her to be in. She certainly still has a lot of opportunities to turn this around. This is only the third turn of game one. But I think that Flamethrower is going to be great information moving forward, though sending in this Tapu Koko right now, very dangerous play for that electric terrain is now going to boost the speed of Raichu.
Yeah, especially dangerous now that we've already seen that Raichu has Encore, so you can't Protect really, or else risk taking an Encore into your Protect, forcing you to either switch or just keep protecting, which Garchomp wants to start Dragon Clawing or Poison Jabbing or Earthquaking. It doesn't want to be sticking around just using Protect. That's just not what Garchomp is.
No, Garchomp needs to start dealing damage. Tapu Koko needs to start doing damage, but Raichu will have the opportunity to attack either of these Pokemon first. So if it potentially has a really powerful Psychic or Thunderbolt, now would definitely be the time for Ansel to show that move.
All right, well, both of these players sort of staring each other down. Garchomp, Tapu Koko, one of the classic early meta leads here, of course, with the Disquake combo, Discharge and Earthquake. Celesteela does not want to take any kind of damage from the Tapu Koko. Switches out, gets the Psychic Surge, so that Tapu Koko's electric type attacks are a little bit weaker here, and boosting Raichu Psychic onto Tapu Koko. So much damage, not enough, but Tapu Koko, physical base, wild charges into the Tapu Lele without the electric terrain, not enough, and it is going to go down to its own recoil.
That is really unfortunate, but Garchomp, with that Rock Slide, it's going to be able to deal at least a little damage to that Tapu Lele and Raichu. So, very interesting play by Ansel there. It looks like he wants to prioritize dealing more damage with that Raichu over its own speed, which, depending on how fast it is in comparison to that Garchomp, could put it in big trouble this turn. Though Milotic certainly will not want to take a Thunderbolt from that Raichu.
Yeah, it works really well on that one turn where Raichu is getting the benefit of the speed from electric terrain, and then the boost from Tapu Lele. Ansel sort of figuring out a way to get both boosts at the same time with that switch in. But taking a good amount of chip damage from the Rock Slide there. If Raichu is fast enough, Psychic probably going to deal a lot of damage to both these Pokemon, but most likely not enough to pick up a KO. So instead, Raichu is going to retreat for the Celesteela, bringing back out this satellite on the field. Tapu Lele going to protect. Ansel just trying to play for positioning here, make sure that he can get his Pokemon in without taking as much damage. Nicole still playing very defensive, protects on the Milotic, and goes for the Earthquake, which will deal no damage to nobody on this turn, thanks to the Protect and the Flying typing of Celesteela.
Yeah, great switch there by Ansel. I think it's safe to say he saw that Earthquake coming, and rather than take damage with his Raichu, he thought he'd send Celesteela in, get a free turn of leftovers, which is always really helpful, especially when Celesteela is such a bulky Pokemon. And now he has a little bit more maneuverability going into the next turn. However, with Nicole down to her last two Pokemon, I would think Ansel shouldn't really play the defensive game much anymore. He really needs to start getting those KOs to make sure he doesn't lose the lead that he has.
All right, well, Garchomp is now the fastest Pokemon on the field. Will be able to pick up the KO onto Tapu Lele with that Rock Slide. Celesteela taking the Rock Slide. You can always bet on a flinch from Garchomp and Rock Slide. Ice Beam will connect with the Celesteela, dealing a little bit of damage, and there it is. Ansel getting flinched by the Rock Slide. Celesteela, fortunately, is super bulky. It doesn't really mind taking a lot of Rock Slides, but at some point, Ansel's going to want that Celesteela to do something.
Yeah, and that's the risk that you run with leaving a Garchomp like that on the field. Raichu coming out from Ansel may be able to help out here. We've seen Raichu carry Fake Out in the past. We do know it carries Psychic, and with Psychic Terrain up, that's certainly going to deal a lot of damage to that Garchomp. Might not be enough for a knockout, but it might be enough just to stall for enough time for that Celesteela to maybe get a substitute up, maybe
some Leech Seed.
Leech Seed. We know it has Flamethrower, but I don't think Flamethrower is going to be much help here.
Yeah, very helpful in the mirror, not so much in any other situation except for Kartana.
Except for Kartana.
And Raichu is exerting a lot of pressure here despite the Surge Surfer ability. Just having that Fake Out option and already having shown Encore, Nicole cannot safely protect herself from the incoming Fake Out if Ansel decides to do so. She doesn't.
Yeah, instead we see Raichu switch out.
Salamence.
So it looks like Ansel probably wanted to get that Intimidate onto the Garchomp, but the unfortunate thing is if this Milotic has the competitive ability,
yeah, and it does.
It's going to get a +2 special attack boost, which is huge. And it
is that an adrenaline orb?
We finally have seen an adrenaline orb on stream here, boosting the speed. Oh.
In comes the Rock Slide onto both Salamence and Celesteela. Milotic going for the recover, expecting to take some damage there. And a heavy slam coming up, so Ansel not opting for any kind of defensive plays, any kind of Leech Seeds or substitutes, and taking a lot of damage back from that rough skin.
Yeah, amazing play.
Interesting turn.
It was a very interesting turn, and Nicole really was able to capitalize on the passiveness of Ansel's plays right there, which I think is huge. Milotic is now a huge threat, and Salamence and Celesteela can't really touch it. It's so bulky. Most Salamence are especially oriented in this metagame, which Milotic just loves to be especially bulky right now. So if it's carrying something like Scald or Ice Beam, now is certainly the time to use it.
Yeah, getting that speed boost plus the competitive boost. Obviously, you know, maybe it would have been a little bit better if Milotic had actually gone for some damage there, but still playing a little bit safe. Got Nicole into reasonably good position, considering it looked like Ansel had a lot of the momentum on his side. Celesteela does go for the Protect this turn, so not going to take any damage from the Milotic or the Garchomp. Draco Meteor misses! Garchomp avoids the Draco Meteor. Draco Miss strikes again, and Rock Slide connects with the Salamence, dealing a little bit more damage back to it. Super effective damage. Milotic did go for the Ice Beam into the Protect, though, so Salamence will get another shot at that Garchomp.
Yeah, that miss was huge. I think Nicole really needed to target that Salamence in order to have a chance of doing some decent amount of damage moving forwards, but
And the Psychic Terrain is gone
Psychic
now.
Terrain has run out, which means Raichu's boosted Psychic is no longer boosted. So certainly something good for Nicole, possibly not good for Ansel, especially if she's able to score a double knockout this turn.
All right, well, Salamence will be able to connect with the Draco Meteor this time. Garchomp, you dodged one Meteor. Not going to be able to dodge the second. Salamence finally picks up that KO. Garchomp will go down. And now Nicole needs to rely on this Milotic with its speed boost and its competitive boost. Ice Beam connects to the Celesteela, trying to get that Pokemon off the field. Not quite enough, and the Leech Seed is in. And Celesteela now should feel reasonably comfortable to just sit back, let the Leech Seed and Leftovers recovery roll in to victory.
Yeah, you know, Milotic tried really hard there, and that competitive boost with the Adrenaline Orb even certainly helped. But with Celesteela just holding on barely and being able to set up the recovery, all it needs to do here is protect, and it'll be able to survive anything that Milotic can throw at it again. And if Salamence switches out here, it'll get its special attack back up. It will no longer have that drop due to the Draco Meteor. And Raichu can always use that Thunderbolt to damage Milotic as well.
Yeah, the Psychic Terrain is not on the field anymore, but Raichu doesn't care. It's up against a Water-type Pokemon.
Yeah, Nicole really needed to get it down to, you know, 2-on-1 with her Garchomp and that Milotic against the Raichu to really have a chance of winning that. But unfortunately, she was unable to identify that win condition, and it looks like we will see Celesteela protect.
Yeah, so Celesteela just going to make sure that it can heal itself back up to full or reasonable with the Leech Seed plus Leftovers. Draco Meteor now onto the Milotic will deal a little bit of damage. Not a whole lot, but at this point, Salamence is just trying to get as much extra damage in as possible. Milotic will pick up the KO onto Salamence, allowing Raichu to come back in. But a lot of good damage onto that Milotic. May be enough to get a one-hit KO with the Thunderbolt now.
Yeah, and even if Ansel wanted to play safe here, he could fake out, get another turn of that Leech Seed damage, and also possibly Heavy Slam do that Celesteela. I believe we've seen that already, so not a lot of options here for Nicole. I think she should really start thinking about if she wants to possibly forfeit, maybe not reveal any more info about her team, but we'll see. You know, it's her play, so we'll see what she does.
Yeah, Milotic does still have the Adrenaline Orb up, so depending on how they're trained in speed, maybe Milotic is able to bring this back. You know, no substitute on the Celesteela does mean that it, you know, can't really just wall forever. Fake Out will flinch the Milotic, and the Heavy Slam, like you mentioned, coming out to deal a little bit more damage back. Still around, but yeah, I think we're at the point where Celesteela can just protect and Leech Seed even if Raichu wasn't on the field.
Yeah, so really well played by Nicole. You know, she really tried her best here. I think she has some really interesting techs on her team, but she really needs to start thinking about how she's going to respond to this Celesteela on Ansel's side of the field. You know, having that flamethrower knocking out her Kartana so early on.
Huge information to have for game 2.
It was huge information going into game 2, and maybe we won't see the Kartana. Maybe we'll see her take Arcanine or one of the other Pokemon on our team instead.
Yeah, I think especially knowing that the Celesteela has that flamethrower, Kartana's not doing that much for the team as Ansel takes game 1. So game 1 goes over to Ansel, who is keeping his tournament dreams of Top Cut very much alive. Needs one more game to go to 6-1 and be pretty close to guaranteeing his space in Top Cut. Nicole, of course, even if she drops this game, will not be out of the tournament yet until after all of the Swiss rounds have completed. And I think there's definitely an opportunity for Nicole to come back in that game. I mean, obviously losing Kartana, she was basically playing with 3 Pokemon against Ansel's 4.
Exactly. So she really needs to take that information into the next game, change the Pokemon that she brings so she can maybe respond to that threat a little bit better.
Or even just not leave Kartana in against Celesteela.
Or just not leave Kartana in on Celesteela even more. She has plenty of options. She can certainly turn it around because on paper these teams look like they're pretty evenly matched, provided Ansel does not bring the Trick Room mode of his team.
Yeah, and of course now Ansel also knows not to be throwing around those Intimidates all willy-nilly, getting the competitive and the Adrenaline Orb boosts for that Milotic. Also good information to know, though, maybe if Nicole had an extra Pokemon, it would have made a difference, but being able to pick up that free KO onto Kartana was just so huge for Ansel.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of reminds me of back in, previous metagames where you only had one game to play against your opponent. Like, that would be game deciding.
Yeah.
So it's really great to see, even though you might have a situation in game one where you're just completely shut out due to a surprise like that, you're given the opportunity to respond. You're given the opportunity to sort of figure things out on the fly. And it makes the game 2 definitely more exciting.
Yeah, moving to a best of 3 sets. I mean, you're right. Back when I was playing, it was one and done, and you're gone.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so Celesteela has flamethrower. I guess I lose this tournament, and I'm gone. This match is over. But now in best of 3, Nicole has the opportunity to adapt to that, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how she adapts and whether she can bring it back and force a game 3.
Yeah, so both these trainers look like they're ready to begin. So good luck to both of them. Let's see how Nicole adapted, and maybe we'll see how Ansel adapted as well.
Yeah, well, looks like there are adaptations made for Nicole, going with the Milotic and Arcanine lead up against the Raichu and Tapu Lele of Ansel. Ansel just wants to go with what worked last time, making sure to get some very powerful Pokemon out on the field, but Nicole switching out that Kartana for the Arcanine this time.
Yeah, so Arcanine's Intimidate won't really help it here. We've seen a lot of Arcanine in this tournament carry moves such as Snarl,
yeah.
which certainly would be helpful here.
Against dual Psychic types.
Milotic, not really in a favorable position. It's still definitely threatened by that Thunderbolt on that Raichu, but who knows? Maybe Nicole will bank on seeing a Fake Out on one of these Pokemon and just try and do some damage at first before she tries to adapt later.
Yeah, and one of the more interesting things about that last game is we did not see a Z move. And a lot of times with this Tapu Lele and Raichu lead, you see a lot of, at least one of them carrying that, the Shattered Psyche ability to pick up a free KO. And it looks like we are going to see it this time.
Yep, that's the
Shattered Psyche.
That's the Psychic Z-Dance. So it looks like Raichu is going to, deal some massive damage right now.
It's so fluffy, but so powerful. Alolan Raichu using its Shattered Psyche. Who is it going to send into the pinball machine? Will be the Arcanine. Arcanine picked up, tossed against all of these Psychic walls, breaking its mental. Going to be an easy one-hit KO with that Psychic Terrain boost.
And that's the KO that Ansel needed right there. That Arcanine Snarl was a huge threat, and being able to take it off the board before Nicole even had a chance to use it is certainly a huge advantage. I would almost say it could be as potentially as threatening as losing that Kartana, who we see again on the field turn 1 of the last game.
Yeah, just like last time, Ansel picks up a free KO on turn 1, and this time he also gets a lot of damage on the Garchomp from the switch-in. Kartana is a very threatening Pokemon, but Tapu Lele and Raichu are both special attackers who we've seen just rip through Kartana.
Yeah, so I think Kartana really needs to manage the threat of Tapu Lele right now. I think that's definitely the big threat on the field. It can have access to some sort of fairy-type attack, which will certainly knock Garchomp out. But at the same time, Garchomp is at such low health. As long as it gets hits by any attack this turn, it'll be knocked out. Looks like it's not going to be from Raichu, though. Yeah,
Raichu's going to retreat for Celesteela instead. Actually, both Pokemon are going to switch out. Salaman's now out for Ansel and the Celesteela, just trying to get that Intimidate off onto both Garchomp and Kartana. Really making sure not to allow that Kartana to get any boosts, and immediately threatened. Leaf Blade onto Celesteela deals no damage. Oh, I feel so bad for you, Kartana. You're so cute. You're just a little steel origami Pokemon, but you just can't deal any damage. Rock Slide deals a little bit, but we've already seen that Salamence is faster and does have Draco Meteor, which it probably doesn't even need to worry about with this low health on the Garchomp.
Yeah, I would almost say if that Salamence knows maybe another Dragon-type move, it might be worth using that instead, just to not have to switch around to lose the special attack drop you get from that Draco Meteor. We're not going to see any switches yet, though.
Well, Kartana will protect itself this turn. Salamence does go for the Draco Meteor, does not get an avoid this time, so Garchomp will have to take this Draco Meteor. We've already seen that's more than enough to knock that Pokemon out. Garchomp will go down. Kartana not able to do anything this turn thanks to the Protect. And Celesteela just sitting out here using that Flamethrower, recognizes, hey, it worked the first game, why not do it again the second?
Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't see a switch into Milotic there for that Kartana, but I don't think it would have really helped Nicole much. She's sort of been at a disadvantage after losing that Arcanine so early on. I think Ansel's done an amazing job of capitalizing on his team's strengths and forcing Nicole really to sort of keep battling to try and gain things back in her favor. But with just Milotic and Kartana on the field, I don't know if that's possible, especially knowing that Celesteela knows Flamethrower and is most likely going to be using it again this turn.
Yeah, I mean, and Milotic did a lot of work last game, but that was after it got the Intimidate for the competitive boost and the Adrenaline Orb coming in on the Salamence. Not going to be able to do that this time around. Smart Strike onto Salamence is not enough damage, and Salamence also showing Fire Blast. Kartana will avoid it, so Ansel will not be able to pick up the KO there. Celesteela taking some Ice Beam. It's a critical hit, but Flamethrower does not miss like Fire Blast does, and that, as we already know, is a one-hit KO onto Kartana.
Yeah, very interesting play from Ansel there, but I don't think it really mattered that much. That Fire Blast missing, not the greatest thing in the world, but we know that the Flamethrower would have connected, and we know that, that Kartana's been intimidated. It's most likely not going to knock out anything on his side of the field. I think he could have played it a little bit safer and possibly done another Draco Meteor into that Milotic, or maybe show us one of Salamence's other attacks. We still haven't seen a Z move on his side of the field. Oh no, we saw the Shattered Psyche.
Yeah. This time, not last time.
This time, not last time.
Salamence, though, is, like you mentioned, just going to keep going for the Draco Meteor onto a Milotic. Just going to keep chipping away, but, you know, Milotic is just not an offensive threat without that competitive boost. The Ice Beam will be enough to pick up the KO onto the Salamence, but after Salamence goes down, it's just going to be Alolan Raichu or the Tapu Lele who come in. And, of course, Celesteela just getting that Leech Seed off, and it's sort of like we saw last time, except Nicole has fewer Pokemon.
Yeah, Celesteela getting Leech Seed, and especially in a situation like this, is essentially a win condition. There's no way that Milotic can deal enough damage to stop it, and even if it were to get like a freeze or a burn if it had Scald, it's just not going to stop Celesteela from regaining that health every single turn.
Yeah, especially after Celesteela got that the Beast boost into special defense. Without Nicole being able to get the competitive, it's just not able to deal any damage back.
Yeah, and we do see that Raichu take the field. I'm not sure if we're going to see a Fake Out again. I think Ansel can afford to be a little bit more aggressive right now and just go for, you know, Heavy Slam, Thunderbolt, and hope that that knocks out that Milotic. But who knows? Maybe playing it safe here is the better option.
There's no reason not to. Just get the free damage from Fake Out. Milotic can't do anything here. Celesteela just adding some extra damage, getting more Leech Seed. Ansel making sure that 100% there is no way that this goes wrong for him, which is, you know, probably the right call there. I know that personally, if I were playing, I would have gotten a little bit ahead of myself.
Me too, unfortunately.
That's probably why we're behind the desk now.
Yeah, I think so. But, you know, it's good for him being able to sort of keep his win conditions and sort of play this safe. On round 7 of Swiss, it just shows how level-headed he is, I think, going into this last round. Certainly, as long as he can keep his cool going into the next rounds, we might be seeing him tomorrow.
Definitely. Well, Ansel will take that match in 2 games. Really strong set from Ansel. Moves on to become 6-1. One more win will guarantee him his spot in Top Cut. Nicole still in the mix. Will need to win out as well for this next round to hope to get in with a 6-2 record. Not the place you want to be, unfortunately, but it's still a possibility.
Yeah, it certainly is possible, and I've certainly seen it before, and I've certainly experienced